And we're live. Episode 4. My intro, my son, my daughter. Cornerstone Hoops is now interviewing, speaking with, having a conversation with the Shane Howard at the Shane Howard.
Oh, boy.
And a good friend of mine who has been, before we even get started, before I say anything about anything else or even ask you a question, I want to thank you. I've done this a little bit anyway, but let's do it official. You know, the whole idea of me starting a nonprofit and you're like, go for it, do it. And then you're like, hey, you need to do some kind of podcast. And even though I haven't caught on fire like you have, I see like 3 or 4 shows a day with you on Facebook, it seems like. But I have bought the equipment. I have started messing around with it. And we're pretty busy. Probably no excuse. But, you're prodding and you're saying, hey, you'd be good at it or whatever, whether you were full of it or not, made me decide to try it. So we've been friends now for what, about 10 years?
10 or 11 years. Yeah, a long time.
10 or 11 years. And when I say friends, it's not like we're hanging out all the time. It's usually via text, via social media. But, 10 years, you've been very helpful in a lot of different ways. And even with Cornerstone Hoops and the ideas and the website and all that, I've leaned on you a lot, and I probably got a lot of advice for free that you make other people pay for.
Well, you really shouldn't put that out publicly, but yeah, I have. I have, but yeah, I mean, it's a friendship, and I think we've even talked about this, even with the current times and stuff going on. We've probably leaned on each other even more so to kind of keep our sanity and. At least spew our sanity to someone else who won't judge us. So,
yeah, it's been a weird last 6 or 7 months, hasn't it?
Yeah, probably going to be a weird another 6 or 7 months, I think.
Well, we were texting. What was it today? It was like yesterday or today. It's like this is like the 9/11. There was the way the airports were before, and not just the airports, but everything. And then there is what is after. So, my son's 12 years old. He may remember a little bit what it was like before COVID, but things are just going to be different. Yeah. I've talked to my students at Silver Creek that, for the rest of your life, you're going to see people wearing masks, whether there's a vaccine or not. So
Absolutely. And I think we're looking at, we're definitely looking at different things changing, from how school goes to the medical world to travel, and which I think, and the thing about it is I think some of it will even be a positive. I think.
I think you're going to see the death knell for mom and pop stores as Amazon really. If people weren't using Amazon before this, they definitely are now.
Well, Amazon and Walmart Plus, their new offering. So what you're going to see is like malls. So like shopping malls and those kind of things that go empty, you're going to see those become like shipping hubs. So you'll have a shipping hub right in the middle of the city where Walmart or Amazon and those kind of things operate. So.
Well, it's like even at school, probably for the last 10 years, I have not understood why they make seniors take classes they don't want to take at high school. Let them take government, let them take English, and let them go home. And, they didn't want to try that, but here we are. We're kind of been forced to deal with that kind of thing. And so you're going to see some changes, I think, even with public schools.
I would say so. I think you're going to see changes with public schools, and I think you're going to see changes with post-secondary education as well. And more, I'll be honest, I think, and it may or may not tie into some of this, but I think you're going to have things also like, mental health and meditation and those things make their way into school. And, once the stigma gets, removed for those things, we're sending kids into a world where they're having to deal with knowing a lot more than, necessary or that we ever have in any other generation. In our past, so they have they're still not. It doesn't mean they're more mature and know how to process it and handle it. So, I think we'll have things like that. If you want me to be like what you're doing, I think it's really cool that you're doing this because it sets an example for your son where, you know, you should be encouraging him. Hey, why don't you start a podcast and, you know, you go
Right.
do these things, because that will become the new branding, the new resume. So it's you know, you're building a personal brand and you're putting your name out there and those things.
Well, you know, I have been blogging for about 10 years and social media stuff, but you know, whatever. But let's start at the beginning. All right.
Okay.
I really don't even remember if I know exactly how we met, other than it was Custom College Recruiting. And you either reached out to me or I reached out to you, and you asked if I would write like a little blurb or something to put on your website.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was. Well, we actually connected, and it's funny. I actually should have looked this up, because I have all my old Twitter DMs still, and you know, I think we actually connected before I started the business officially.
Yes,
I was kind of in the process of rolling it out, and I did so kind of in a slow way, I think, and then it got to a point where we got that. I think we met somehow on. I think just back then it was Twitter just started.
Yeah.
Right? So like it was like there was a group of people who just talked basketball and recruiting and sports, and there really wasn't all the other garbage
Right.
that's.
Well, and what
now.
was crazy was back when Twitter started, is you could at a college basketball coach.
Oh
like
yeah.
Chris Collins and I went back and forth and talked through DM and stuff because there was just nobody on it.
Yeah.
And to reach out that way. But yeah, I think it probably was because, you know, I was the head coach at Henryville High School at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always trying to get our kids how to play college basketball or give them the opportunity. And I didn't know that much about it. Maybe that's how it all started. I reached out to you, like, what can I do?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually pulling it up right now to try and see if I still got old messages here. Cause it would be in like 2009. So
Yeah.
I'm getting close. Cause you probably had a different Twitter handle then.
Yeah, I think I've changed it a little bit. Not much. At Coach P Hunter, I think. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know. I'll find it. I'll figure it out.
So, what's your basketball background? You know, Cornerstone Hoops. We're going to be doing basketball, but it's more about just cornerstones of life.
Sure.
But, you know, basketball is a lot related to it. Maybe not basketball, maybe it's some other sport. But what was just give us a background of you when it comes to basketball and that kind of led you into CCR.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'm from here in Kentucky, kind of the number one state in the country for basketball, obviously. And you know,
they don't make movies about Kentucky high school basketball. They make them about Kentucky getting beat by, what was it, that team in Texas or something?
What was it? Most movies are exaggerated versions of history, I think. I think so. So I'm definitely not a Kentucky fan. So before anybody goes bananas, I'm not. I could care less. I actually I'm anti UK. I'm not a Louisville fan either. So don't like.
There goes all my ratings.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of anybody. And you know, so yeah, it's So I grew up here. I played at Bowling Green High School, one of the better athletic high schools. We were a public city school in the city of Bowling Green. At that time, I think we had 800 students. Had a gym that seats 4,500, 5,000 people. Nice arena, one of the nicer arenas at the time in the state of Kentucky. Just enjoyed that part of it. I wasn't the greatest student. So if we're talking about Cornerstone, basketball really for me was a lifesaver in a lot of ways. I didn't have the greatest of backgrounds coming up and growing up, and didn't have the greatest home life, and end up, I graduated 154th out of 187 with a 1.7 GPA. Well, you know what? It's funny. Well, yeah. So I've done a little bit of research.
Hold on. Out of those 153 ahead of you, who's probably been more successful?
Oh, there's some people who are successful. I mean, we all can gauge success on
Right.
1,000 different things. Have any of them from a business standpoint traversed the world?
Right.
Probably not. How many of them have partnerships with multinational governments? Probably not many.
Right.
But I don't say that in a bragging way. I say that as in, and I like to bring attention to that because there are a lot of athletes whose school just doesn't click for them. It doesn't.
Right.
It is the only thing keeping them motivated and keeping them focused on school. And for me, it did that. I knew I wasn't a bad kid. I never got in trouble. I was never in detention, never got in school suspension or anything like that. I knew how to play the system. I knew how to do just enough to get by. If I knew grade check was coming out in the second half of the school year, I'd get an 80 in the first half because I knew then all I had to do is get a 40 the second half. You divide that by two, that's a D. I still passed, and I knew I didn't have to do a whole lot. So
you weren't dumb.
No, I mean I got a 15 on the ACT, but I say all those things because those things don't matter. Like, I keep a copy of my transcript around. It's actually, well, you can't see it's on the wall. I keep a copy of it on the wall. I do that to show like school isn't as important. So we were talking about how school is going to change. What's important is life skills. What's important is if you have a kid who's not great in school, find out what he is good at and find him in a program and put him in that in high school so that he sets up, to succeed. So that's really how I got started in basketball. I played 4 years. I mean, I got cut my 8th grade year. I went to my coach and asked if he actually, I didn't get cut. I quit. I said, Coach, we're winning. We're beating teams by a lot. How come you're not putting me in? He said, well, Shane, I'll be honest. I don't want to put you in because I don't want you to embarrass yourself.
You're right.
And I started working. I quit that day. I handed my stuff in. Back then, I think they still have it now at Pizza Hut. I don't know if you remember, they had a program called Book It.
Yeah.
And so you could read some books and you take this slip into Pizza Hut and they'd either give you a personal pan pizza, or if you read so many other, you get other things. Well, a personal pan pizza wasn't going to do much for me at 14 years old. So, I went and they had a big purple basketball you could get. And I went and got this basketball, and I lived near a place called Pettigo Park. And I'd walk there every day in the snow and I'd play. I had got somebody, maybe I had saved up some money or something and bought a Discman with the external speakers. And I remember one of the first CDs I could buy, or somebody got it for me for Christmas, I think, or something, was Shaq's CD. And so I would sit and I would listen to that. I'd put it right at the goal post at the post, and I'd sit there and I'd just play. And 8 months later, the varsity season rolled around. I was on the varsity team. I started the first game of the season. I scored 8 points and 8 rebounds, and I was never a star player. I've always been really, really self-aware, so I knew my role. I played with a very, very talented group of guys, of a bunch of other seniors, and we all played together, and we literally lived together, played together. We'd leave practice and go to the park and play for 2 or 3 hours at the park every night. And, different times back then, kids, took it. We didn't really play AAU like that. We played with grown men at the park. And
you had to play hard. You had to be good, and you had to win, one of the two, because if they didn't pick you up, you weren't going to get to play.
Yeah.
So you had to get on a team that was going to win too.
I'll tell you a really funny story that kind of connects back to Indiana. So my sophomore
stories do, but go ahead.
No, they don't. I was, we went, I think going into my sophomore year, maybe going into my junior year, during the summertime, they used to have a big Pro-Am tournament in Owensboro every year. And all the team, like Tennessee, their Tennessee's University of Tennessee's team would come and play. All the teams around would come and play. Well, then some of the older teams would come and play as well. And I remember one of the first games we played in that year, we played who did we play? Oh, we played in the Larry Bird Indiana State team, they had everybody minus Larry Bird.
And it was still a pretty good team, right?
Oh yeah, so I can't remember. And so if anybody is listening, you'll know who I'm talking about when I describe this. I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but he talked nonstop, and he played with a toothpick in his mouth. And he had handles. He was a guard, probably guard wing, and he could play. And he talked the entire time. And here we are, and we were young, and these guys at that point they're grown men. I mean, they're we didn't
years old probably.
Well, it wasn't that old, I wouldn't think. We were
95. Yeah, so that's 16 years after, so they're late 30s.
Yeah, late 30s. Yeah, mid to late 30s. So that would have been right. 95, 96, somewhere around in there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, these guys, man, they destroyed us. A bunch of high school kids out there playing, but it was a fun experience. It was fun. So did that. Senior year rolled around. We had a good team. Probably one of the top, I would say, talent for talent. We were probably one of the top teams in the state of Kentucky, if not the top team. We were the last undefeated team in the state of Kentucky. We went 27-3, lost 3 games by a total of 7 points. Lost a tough one in the regional finals, but I think 10 or 11 of the 15 players on our roster went to go play college basketball.
Who'd you guys lose to?
We lost to Russellville. So right. we lost to Russellville.
Is that still school, or are they consolidated into a county now?
Yep. They're still a small school, about 200 or 300 students, I think. But historically, really, really good. Our coach made a bad coaching move. We've talked about it since then. They know it. They made a move. They pulled me and another guy out.
Terrible coaching move.
At that point, it was. Yeah, they had two big guys, two brothers, Tony and Thad Key. So Tony Key broke 4 or 5 backboards, played 6. He was 6'10", went to Wabash, I think, for a year.
Okay.
Went into the draft out of high school and didn't get drafted, and then went to Wabash, and then ended up out in California. You look up Tony Key's basketball highlights at Russellville High School, and you'll see him breaking backboards. His brother Thad Key.
Yeah.
His brother Thad Key was the same age as us and was dunking in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And we had actually held both of those guys to a total of 6 points, me and another guy. And they took me out and put a bigger guy in late in the game for rebounding. We were up. I think we were up 1, and it was a bad call.
Right.
Our big guy, 6'9" guy, ran out as this big 6'10" kid who was not going to. If he would have shot, it probably would have went to our goal instead of his. He pump faked, and our big guy jumped out on him. He took 2 dribbles in a big stride, hit a layup, and that was it. Now you're making me mad.
Yeah, it's amazing. We were just talking about it. I think it was some coaches and I were talking about how some of the things that. Like, I can remember losing on a last-second shot my senior year. It's to Salem High School. They were better than us. We had them beat the whole game. That's where my dad graduated from. So all I heard for the whole year was, Salem's going to beat you. Salem's going to beat you. And I can still see the ball, going up, getting tipped, and going in at the buzzer. And I was 18 years old, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, for you it was. For you, it was a really long time ago.
You weren't born yet, probably in 1980.
No, you're definitely old enough to be my dad.
Well, you were talking about taking your radio and listening to the CD. Well, when I was little, I didn't have basketball. Huh? No, cassette player. All right, so
yeah.
And one of those tape recorders. You put the cassette in there.
We had that.
And then I would take a metal hanger and take the end off of it, stretch it out, stick it in the door, and then I'd take a sock and put gray tape around it. And that's what I played games with. And the first side A or whatever, was the first half. Second side was the second half.
Is that did you do the whole thing where you like recorded songs off the radio and you'd have to go and?
No, it was, what was those stupid cassette things where you buy 10 for a penny and then they hammer you for the next
Columbia,
5 years.
Columbia House. Yeah, you probably still owe them some money. Yeah,
yeah, probably somewhere along the way. You're like, man, this is 10 free cassettes for a penny.
Columbia House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and they'd send it to anybody, no matter how old you were. Everybody got one.
Yeah, and they'd send you the cassettes too, because they knew they'd get you. But so after high school, did you play college basketball?
So I went to go play a year of junior college basketball. That did not work out. I'm not for school. So I went
Right.
to Lee's Community College, Hazard College, Lee's College, Hazard Community College campus. So it was one of the last junior colleges still in the state of Kentucky. Previous year, I think they finished 7th, 8th in the country. But it was middle of Eastern Kentucky. School wasn't for me. I'm still friends with my coach. He and I still give him a hard time, and we're still friends to this day. But yeah, that was kind of the end of my playing career. I got better as I got older. I turned 18 in April of my senior year, so I was one of the younger guys on the team. But
well, it's amazing as you get older, the game kind of slows down. And
yeah.
You're 22, 23, 24. Like I was real good at that age. So what? It's pickup games.
Yeah. Well, so that's the last time I played. So in 2003, maybe 2004, I played at the park. I didn't lose a game all summer. And I was a bigger guy. I mean, I'm at that point 245, 250, 6'6". And at the park, when you're playing physical and you know how to play physical and you're not afraid to play physical, there's not a whole lot you're going to do with a guy 6'6", 250. And I won every game. And I don't know that I've actually really played since. I played around here or there, but I haven't played since.
So what led into custom college recruiting? What were you coaching?
Well, yes and no. So CCR started January of 2010.
And custom college recruiting, it was started out basketball, right?
Yeah. So what led into it? So the economy tanked. So I was in sales and finance at a Cadillac dealership down in Bowling Green. Did that for most of my adult. I went 20 to 28. That's what I did. And my wife now, who was we were dating at the time, she was getting into teaching. At the same time, the economy was going absolutely in the toilet. And and one of my close friends in high school, a guy I grew up and graduated with, got his first head coaching job over in Owensboro.
Okay.
At Davis County High School. So he hit me and was like, we had conversations like, look, I'm thinking about Caleb Smith.
Is that the dude? Maybe that's how we met each other. Because he and I had played against each other.
No, we knew each other before then because we talked about Okay. So we went through and I was like, we'd had conversations about, hey, I'm thinking about doing something different. I'm working twice as many hours, making half the money. It's just not, this is not what I want to keep doing. So the plan was I potentially was going back to school, to get my teaching degree, teach special ed, coach, like, the same path that a lot of guys take that want to get into it. And we went up there and I took a job so I went from doing what I had been doing, making really good money, and took a job as an aide in an MSD room. So for those of you not in the education world, that's multiple severe disabilities room, in a middle school as an aide, helping kids with multiple disabilities, anything from behaviors to feeding to bathroom stuff to you name it. It was a part of it, making a lot less than what I was making.
Well, in education, the toughest jobs get paid the least amount of money. So I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was. But I had a really good time doing it. I worked for a really cool teacher. She was an athlete at one point. She was younger. She was actually younger than I was, which was interesting, obviously, as well. Me coming in from a leadership role in what I was doing and those things. And I did that for a year. And I got offered. There was a head coach at Brescia University.
Okay.
And he had came and watched some games and watched practice. His head assistant was leaving, and he came to me and was like, "Hey, I want to know if you want to, if you'd like to come over. I know you got a sales background, you got all kinds of energy." And I said, because I coach very much like I play. I'm very encouraging. I'm loud. I communicate. Like it's talk.
So you go be the assistant at Brescia. It's not like you're making $225,000 a year either. So you're going.
No, I'll tell you exactly. Yeah, because I think I'm probably one of the few guys that will tell you actually how it actually goes. Then, so I go over it. So actually, I don't take the job. So he offers it to me, and we're going into spring break. And he says, "Look, I want so I'd like for you to help me recruit." So I say, okay, let me see what kind of connections. So this is when I'm starting. Like, so I don't know anybody. I've only been a high school coach for 6 months. Like it's, not in. I don't know what I'm doing, and but I know how to sell. I know how to talk to people. So I made some connections really quick, and ended up connecting with T.J. Ford, his dad, Pop Ford, Leo Ford. And he ended up flying up. I think TJ paid for some kids to fly up through his AAU program or just helped them out. And we had 6 guys, I think, come up. I had some other guys show up because I told myself if I can have 4 guys come to this, then I'll take the job. I went down to Florida. My wife is from Pensacola. So I was going to go down there, work the phones, see what I could come up with. It sounded fun at the time. So if it felt like it wasn't work while I was doing it, then I would take the job. So we came back. I think like 10 or 12 guys showed up. I was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll do this. And, for the next 5 months, and I'll try to keep this as positive as possible. For the next 5 months, I made a total of $380. Let's just say that what I was being told wasn't exactly the truth coming from the coach that's there.
Gotcha.
He's still coaching somewhere, so I'm not gonna put his name out there. But the story actually does come full circle with him. That I'll actually tell you a part of how it comes full circle. So, I did that, and then that summer I was doing what I do. I connect. I find. I know how to hack into an industry. I know how to. Once I figure something out, it's really easy for me to just kind of go. So all of a sudden,
first time I ever saw you like face to face, it was some kind of showcase, and I can remember it was somewhere in Louisville.
Oh, we were at Louisville, yeah.
It was packed. There were people, and man, you were working the crowd. I can remember.
Yeah. Well, so
intimidating. You're a little bit intimidating, big dude. You got that inner city kind of talk to you, real tough sounding. Super nice guy, but it was like, who is this guy? You were working the crowd.
You can have people scared to talk to me. I'm about as approachable and helpful as a guy.
That is for sure. And that's what I'm saying. I'm sitting here and I'm like, my gosh. But the way you were working the crowd, I mean, everybody was your friend in there.
Well, a lot of the coaches. So there were a lot of the coaches that were there that were, and you got to kind of like, it's, I'm the same way. I guess I've always just I only know how to be myself. I mean, I'm the same person now as I was, then when you met. Right. So I said, I started making connections, and I made a connection with a guy who's known as the Godfather, Jim Hicks. He's known as the Godfather of basketball in Houston, Texas. A lot of people don't know this, but Houston, Texas is actually the center of high school basketball. Mm-hmm. They have more high schools and more college, more Division I athletes that more Division I basketball players that come out of the city of Houston than any other state in the country every year. And like it's bananas how much talent is in Texas. So I made this connection with him. Well, I texted him one night. He has a show. So back then he had a call-in show that he had on cable TV, and they had a 1-800 number, and like it was like I don't know, it's like a local cable station, but it was, I mean, everybody in Houston, everybody all the way up into New Orleans got it. So I just texted him, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for some kids. He texts me back and says, here, call this number, let him know I sent you. So I didn't know what he was talking about. So I just call, and I said, hey, Jim. He's like, yeah, hold 1 second. So next thing you know, I'm on air. Well, I'm not watching the show. I'm not watching the show. So I don't. Did I have a computer? I think I definitely had a computer at that point, or I was using my wife's computer at the time. So I don't have it pulled up. You could watch it online, but I didn't have it pulled up. That wasn't why I was hitting him. I was just hitting him, So little unbeknownst to me, he's running my email address and my cell phone number on the screen. All right. So I have this phone conversation, and when I tell you, I had to turn my phone off when I went to bed because it literally would not stop. And that was back in the day. I think I had like a BlackBerry. Right. So it literally, like, it wasn't like what it is now. Like, this thing would just go off. Right. It was, and I don't even think I had unlimited text messaging. I think it was I think it cost me some money.
Right.
So like it was just, so I had to turn it off. And I think I remember something in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 missed calls and something like 30 or 300 or 400 text messages.
Right.
And I was like, what in the, like, I got more kids than I know what to do with.
Right.
And that's where the idea for CCR came out. Cause it was like, I'm here at Brescia. We literally only have 2 scholarships every year, like to divide amongst 15 players. Like, how do I figure this out? And I said, there's got to be a way. I wasn't happy. I'm not making any money. I'm being misled in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I started in my head. I started talking about it. I've never started a business. I didn't own a computer. I just went through a divorce at the time and started. I had $1,500 to my name. And so another funny part of this story, in this process of coming up with the idea, I get on a plane to go to Miami, Florida to recruit an international combine that is there in Miami. It was held at Barry University. And I go down, and I'm on the plane sitting next to a guy. And so they give me one of the seats with just the rows with just 2 seats.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and and this is one of those, this is how the world works, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I hope nobody else sits here. I'm 6'6", I got a bunch of room, I'm good. And this guy sits down next to me, and I was like, oh man. Little did I know, again, this is one of those things. Right. Little did I know that this guy was going to help me out. And I don't know how much of this I should or shouldn't say, but I'm going to say it because, I don't know. Statute of limitations has to be up at some point, but
nobody watches this anyway.
That's true, but somebody might.
I'll interview you in a year or two when I actually have followers.
So what I did was, this guy who was on his way to go to Miami as well for Alonzo Mourning's birthday weekend, and he was a financial advisor for a lot of professional coaches and college coaches and NBA players. So he and I get to talking, and I'm telling him my idea. It comes up. He's like, is that what? He's like, yeah. He's like, man, if you ever need something, let me know. Right. Well, I came back, and when the idea is finally up and going, probably 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, I was like, hey, I went ahead and made the jump. I've got $1,500 to my name. Is there any way legally I can flip this money? And he was like, yeah, I can give you some advice on some penny stocks to buy. And I was like, okay, how long is it going to take? He's like, well, it depends on what kind of risk you want to take. Right. And I was like, I'm pretty risky. So let's roll the dice. He said, well, go create an account. When I tell you to go buy these stock, you buy these stock. And when I tell you to sell them, you sell them. And I was like, oh, he's like, and you have, like, when I hit you with a text, you have to get to somewhere within 5 minutes. So I literally would keep my computer it would be in the car. I'd hide it up under the seat, wherever I was.
Right.
I was going to figure it out. And I did. And he texted me and I flipped it. It turned into about $2,900 in about 5 weeks. And I went and bought a computer, formed an LLC, did all the things backward that you shouldn't do when you start a business.
Right.
And that's how CCR kind of got started.
So, yeah, because when we got in contact with each other, you were in the process of getting it ready.
It would have been within a couple months after that. So that was in September of 2009. So it would have had to have been October, somewhere in that neighborhood, October-ish. Right. Yeah.
I found it interesting because, I remember telling you that I've always wanted to get kids hooked up with, some kind of something when it comes to college basketball. And, I'm reaching out to you because I have no clue. And I appreciated, like, I will say this, though, and we'll get to CCR here in a second, but you not being a part of it, you need to get me some other recruiting service that you trust, because I've traveled internationally and I get hit up about once every couple of months by some kid that I met, or they've befriended me on social media, and they're like, I want to come to America and play basketball. Yep. And it's like, I can't help you. I am sorry. And I used to, man, you were my out. I would send them your name and Custom College Recruiting.
Yep.
And I'd be done with it. And, I want to help people, but they can't come to Indiana. We just don't have the rules that like Florida does or somebody like that. But so Custom College Recruiting, you're helping kids start with basketball. And then what was the next sport?
So we started in basketball, and then we ended up going into soccer. We started in men's basketball only. So men's basketball is how we originally started and launched.
In just the United States, right? In just
the United States. So how that story kind of comes full circle. So after a couple years of doing that, we started having some success. I get invited to come speak I
remember you telling me this story.
I get invited to come speak at the Michigan High School Coaches Association. I will tell you right now, I've not been to every state's high school coaches association for basketball. Michigan does it in a way that is second to none. They do it really, really well. Well, here I am booked at the same time around the same time, throughout the day, in the same bill as or Tom Izzo and all these guys. I go in. Well, I go up there. And me and one of my guys, we drive up there, and I get to the venue early, and we kind of park in the parking lot, and I look over, and here's the coach who hired me at Brescia with one of his assistants attending the coach's clinic to learn and to be there. So I saw, when I tell you I walked, it's what I would liken this to is the most disrespectful home run walk, as slow as possible. Like literally, like you're going to come out and want to fight me and get me to go around the bases. And I went around and I did that. And I know I didn't say anything to him. I didn't have to say anything to him. He could see the schedule. He could see it. I know he had to have been like, are you kidding me? Because we did not part ways on the, I mean, I'm
right.
Yeah. So, so then we did that, started just with kids, because Detroit, we work with a lot of kids out of Detroit. We helped a lot of kids out of Detroit, a lot of really successful kids, a lot of really, really awesome young men. Houston, Texas, we had some kids out of Indiana. Then I got connected with some folks in England.
Okay.
England.
Was that the first international?
It was, yeah. So, but we didn't really go so I got invited. It's so funny how the world works and these positions that I've been put in and how things come full circle. So there's another similar story. So I went to England. So I didn't go to England. We started working with some kids from England, and so after probably 6 months, the lady that I was working with, she's since passed away. She is man, she was a cornerstone for basketball in
Right.
England. Her name was Bev Guyman. Her son has kind of taken the torch from what she was doing and running with it. Just a jewel of a lady. She's just like your mom. Like she'd talk to you, she'd shoot you straight,
Right.
do anything. If she liked you, she'd do anything in the world to help you. And she was in the area of Southampton. So their basketball in England is kind of positioned very much like a lot of, it's like a state, right? Or what you would say like counties, right? So
Right.
so that's a lot of what the UK or England is. So she says, well, look, we're having this coaches clinic, and all the coaches from this region are going to be here, and it's our thing. Our group is putting it on. We'd love for you to come and talk, but we can't pay for you to do it. But you can see and be in front of, and you have a chance to talk about what you do in front of hundreds of coaches.
Right.
So I was like, all right, man, why not? Never been out of the country. I knew nothing about it. I got a passport.
At least they speak English there.
Well, they do. Knew nothing about what I was doing. When I look back on that trip, I don't even know how the heck so it was just a disaster of a trip. We had a good time. One of my guys went with me. Same guy that went to Michigan with me went with me there, Aaron. And we go down to Southampton. So I go down to the coaches clinic. I'm there. I show up. We know what time we're supposed to go. And she walks up to me and she says, you know, you're not going to be able to talk. And I was like, I just spent, I'm not making any money at this point. I just spent what at that point was a very large sum of money to me. I said, what do you mean? And she's like, well, our CEO for the country of basketball is here, and he saw that you're giving a talk, and he thinks that our basketball is going to get better by keeping our players in the country, and we keep them until they get to the Olympic level. And he doesn't want you to talk. And while it's our camp, I don't have to do what he says, but I kind of need to. I was highly upset.
Right.
And
you could talk to the dude and be like, listen, you think
I did.
Your kids here is going to make them better?
So I did. So I was walking around, and I see him at this sports facility walking down the hallway. His name's Warwick Can. I don't care to put his name out there. And because it all comes full circle. Right. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, can I have a chat with you for a second? I'm Shane Howard. You know, you told Bev that you couldn't. And he was like, oh, you know, I'm not going to imitate. He's actually Australian.
Yeah.
So we pull in. I said, look, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, I was like, no. I was like, look, I realize you think it's an arrogant American thing. If you want your best players to get better, as soon as they graduate high school, you should do everything you can to get as many of them over playing in our college system as possible, because the ones even who aren't good enough to make it to the Olympics, they're going to learn a vaster array of the game and bring that back to your country. Because the reality of it, people in America, like, they don't think about that, but that's actually what's happening. That's why these other countries have gotten better.
Absolutely.
So we argue about it. I said, look, I can't, you know, and I was very stern, but I was respectful. Like, you know, okay, you can do what you want to do. Fine. That's fine. Right. But I can assure you, most of the times in my life when people have gone against me, this doesn't work out well. But okay. Right. It didn't work out well for him. Right. When you talk to people over there, and I'm not going to run his name in, he wasn't the greatest person for the job.
Right.
Not because of my situation, just because like basketball there was not going anywhere. So we kind of go through that. Well, then, I don't know, 2 years go by. I get a phone call from somebody running Andrew Bogut's Academy in Australia. And you can interject. I'm just kind of running the story here.
No, it's fine. I'd like listening. That's when Coach Foss, I've got his shirt on right here.
So it's actually really going to come full circle then. So wait until I tell you how it comes full circle to him.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, I get this phone call. we're now expanding out. I've worked with kids in probably 10 different countries around the world, and
Right.
kids are hitting us from everywhere. And this guy says, hey, we've a bunch of college coaches, and we're trying to find the best resource for them to get exposure in the States. Everybody keeps telling us that it's you. Can we talk?
Right.
Well, we hop on the phone, hey, okay, let's talk. I think it was like a Skype call back then. Still didn't have FaceTime, I don't think.
Right.
So Skype. And so let's do that. He's like, okay. He's like, we have this tournament down here every year in the 1st of June that you should come to. And I'm
Where
like,
was it?
this is in Melbourne. Well, it's outside of Melbourne, Australia. It's actually in a place called Dandenong, Australia, which is about 45 minutes southeast of Melbourne.
Okay.
Out near the Yarra Valley, for those people who want to really do some cool research. A lot of kangaroos out in the Yarra Valley, not in the city of Australia.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna try and figure this out. I start looking at plane tickets. I'm like, whoa, $900 a ticket. That's a lot of money. So I make a decision to go and spend 10 days there. In the airport, same guy that went to me, Aaron, went with me to England. At this point, he's kind of my right-hand guy.
Right.
I hit him. I'm in the airport in Detroit waiting to catch my flight to L.A., and I book his ticket. I was like, hey, can you leave for Australia tomorrow? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I'm paying. I just need you to be at the airport tomorrow at 9 a.m. He's like, yeah, I'll get everything together right now. So I go to Australia. I go there. I go to this tournament. I find out really, really quick that, and this is way before Ben Simmons. I actually saw Ben Simmons while I was there before anybody here in America knew who he was.
Right.
I saw really, really quick that there was a need. I actually went to this tournament, and a guy walked up to me who had a recruiting service there. I didn't know him at the time. And he walks up to me. He's like, hey, are you guys Americans? I was like, yeah, we're Americans. Like, not that we didn't stick out like a sore thumb standing in here, and everybody turning around every time we open our mouth and talk to us. They're all turning around asking questions.
Right.
So he's like, did you guys check in with the government? And I was like, check in with the government? He was like, yeah, you can't be here scouting and recruiting kids and talking to players unless you check in with the government. And I looked at him and I was like, man, like, I know this isn't America, but it's a free country. Like, I don't I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm just telling you. He's like, you can get in a lot of trouble. And I was like, I can get in a lot of trouble. Like, so
what are they gonna do? Throw me in jail for
well, so I'm trying to process all of this as it's happening. And Aaron and I are going back and forth and we're talking about it. And he says, there was a guy named Marty Hansen. And Marty Hansen since passed away. Just he's a legend, absolute legend of a guy. And he walks up and he was like, "Hey, mate," he's like, "I was listening to this guy. Don't pay him no mind." He's like,
right.
So he's like, "I've already checked on you guys. I made a couple phone calls." He worked for the state government there, Basketball Victoria there, and at the time, and he was like, "Look, you're good." He's like, I've heard you talk to some of these parents. I've heard you have he was following us around listening to some of these conversations. And he's like, you do whatever you want to do. And if you need intros into somebody, you come let me know and I'll introduce you to them, whatever. You just let me know. And he was always that for us from that point forward. Right. Back then, Duck Dynasty was a big thing on TV.
Yeah.
And they got it over there, and we'd sit and talk to him about Duck. He thought it was hilarious that they'd have to put subtitles for Americans, like just these different things. And so that went well. I came home, and another situation where people are being taken advantage of. There's an American over there who played in the pros, who is now living in Australia and was taken advantage of because he was American, and you could Google him and see him in a professional jersey.
Right.
So a lot of those kids, one of his coaches actually grabbed me on my last day there and pulled me over into like this closet and was like, hey, because if anybody sees me talking to you, it's going to get back to him. But I'm willing to pay for some of these kids to use your service. I want to make sure, because they're not getting any help with him. And I'm one of his coaches. and it's what I have to do for a job. But
Right.
so I ended up helping a bunch of them for nothing.
Right. And what people don't understand, I think, in the United States is like athletics is so tied into the schools here in the high schools. And
Not the case. Yeah.
I don't think it's that way anywhere in the world. And it's all clubs. Now,
New Zealand's pretty strong with it, but it's also clubs.
Dude,
but it's
every
also
time
clubs.
we have foreign exchange students come to our school, they love it. That school isn't just for school; it's sports too.
Yeah.
And I still think, and this may speed it up, but I think we're headed that way at some point. But so how'd you get to know Coach Foss? How did that work out?
So that was kind of longer down in the situation. So we progress. Couple years down the road on a trip, the government of basketball for the different states now want to have they reach out and want to have a conversation with me.
They don't want to put you in jail. They want to talk to you.
So we end up becoming their preferred service. We end up partnering with them. Basketball Victoria, Basketball Queensland, Basketball New South Wales, all these different places. And we kind of have the run of the gamut. I can now go to their facilities and set up, because we're doing something we're doing it the right way. So they were, I cannot, and let me say this, the people of Australia are the most welcoming and the most inviting,
right,
and the most hospitable people of they're in New Zealand of anywhere else I've been in the world. And
right.
Just, once you have a friend there, you have a friend.
What I have found in all my international travels is when they find out I coach basketball in Indiana, that it's like, hey,
they feel sorry for you.
No, they're just like, oh my gosh, a basketball coach from Indiana. Anyway, go ahead.
So now we're kind of, we're the service of the country. That's kind of what we're doing. Unofficially, we were partnered with Australian Capital Territory, which is ACT. A bunch of these different local associations, schools, clubs like that. Right. We were just so funny enough how it comes back full circle to England. The gentleman who's in England then retires, gets fired, and comes back, and here I'm now doing what I'm doing for the entire country of his home country. Also partnered.
It's continent, but
yeah. So.
Little Southampton didn't want you, but Australia.
Yeah. Well, England didn't want me.
Right.
The CEO of England didn't want me, but now now he's got a seat, and we're doing all these positive things. Kids going to school left and right, getting millions of dollars in scholarship money, like all this stuff. He has no choice but to sit back and see it.
Right.
So Coach Foster and he reaches out on one of my trips. This would have had to have been 2015, maybe. So 5 years in now, invites me up. It's like, hey, we'll do a seminar. If you can get up here, we can do a seminar. Black Stars, I believe, was the name of the club where he was at.
Right. In Townsville.
In Townsville.
Did you go? You've been to Townsville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been to Townsville.
Beautiful place.
Yep. We stayed at the casino.
Island.
We stayed at the casino right there in Townsville. Beautiful view, right on the water.
Did you go to Magnetic Island?
No. I was only there for. I got to go see the house. I went to the Foster's house.
Yeah.
And had dinner. And was entertained by his youngest daughter. She is she's hilarious.
Yeah, she is
absolutely hilarious.
She was amazed by American money. So when we got back, my wife, we sent Coach Foss wanted Twinkies. We told him about it. He thought they were amazing. So we sent Twinkies. I think I sent a hoodie, Silver Creek hoodie, and we sent his daughter some American money.
Nice. Yeah. That's how you do it. And Coach Foster, if you're listening, there's an American convenience store in downtown Brisbane, and they sell Twinkies there. Now they're about $9 or $10, maybe $11 a box.
He found snowballs, I think.
He was
expensive. Like, what is this?
A 12 pack of Dr. Pepper, I think, is $28.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've been places where stuff like that's dirt cheap, and then I've been places like that where you're like, the four of us when we went over there and you put me in contact with him, we go out to eat. The four of us be like $110, like American dollars, not Australian stuff. So
so imagine I'm traveling over there for business, spending 3 weeks at a time, and taking 3 or 4 guys with me.
Right.
So I'm paying for them to fly. I'm paying for them to eat 3 meals a day. I'm paying for them
what I'm hoping with Cornerstone Hoops is when I go places like that, it'd be maybe through a church, and then you get the people that'll let you, they'll you get these women that'll feed you and whatever. But yeah, it's a little different than what you're doing. So what you were doing. So custom college recruiting kind of, you decided that you wanted to get out of that. But
it was time.
You want to get out of that. What award did you win with that?
The
entrepreneur.
So in 2018, I was named emerging entrepreneur by the Kentucky Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame. Really just a culmination of a lot of hard work and other people from, investors to employees to my family to other people, help people in other countries who believed in us. I mean, yes, I was the one who got an award, but it's kind of like, it's kind of like the quarterback getting the MVP award, right?
Right.
He threw the ball, and he had to read the defense, but so many other pieces had to go into play.
Right, but it was your brainchild, it was your baby, it was your thing. You grew, and I mean, you're right. You can't do anything on your own. Somebody's going to help you in some way, but it was your idea to start, and again, I'm not taking anything away from people. Even my little blurb on your blog, I think may have got you, thousands of dollars. I don't know, but
so you're trying to reap some royalties now. I see. We'll call us even. We'll call us even to this point. Then
the thing that I think about you winning that award, and because we know each other. I think we know each other pretty well. All right.
Well,
we haven't spent hours and hours of time together, but I think we know each other pretty well. You were doing it for the right reason. Or for the right reason.
Yeah.
And you weren't trying to, take advantage of people. And what a lot of people don't understand in these recruiting services is you pay all that money, and that may be about all you get, a little highlight video, and that's it. And I felt like you were doing it for the right reasons. That's why I would send people to you.
Yeah. I think, and that's, and I think for any families that maybe are listening and looking to go do those things, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If you're getting made a bunch of promises and guarantees, turn around and run the other way. No one can guarantee. We placed more college basketball players in the United States from America or from anywhere else as a service over the span of 8 years than anyone else in the world.
You got a number?
And
ballpark figure?
Thousands. It's thousands.
That's not just basketball. That's all the other sports you got involved.
Well, most of that was basketball. So that's so in that with basketball, total across all sports, we ended up helping athletes receive a little over $100 million in scholarship and aid, to come over here. And some were American kids, some, Australia, New Zealand, China, a bunch of countries in Europe. For me, it was always, doing it. I wanted to sleep good at night. Right. So that's kind of really, and I kind of skipped over that part, I guess. But when I started it, I was using other services as a coach, and I was seeing what these people were paying for. Not only was it worthless to them, it was worthless to me.
Right.
So I said, there's got to be a way to kind of navigate this and to do this the right way. And that was actually the kind of the brain idea that came out. It's like, I want to provide something that's actually of value to the college coaches. And that's actually what we did. So I never once was concerned about what the families were telling us. And I don't mean that as in like we're going to change the service. I knew exactly what the college coaches wanted. Right. I mean, I went from not having any college coaches contacts to when I was done having 36,000.
Right.
Like I've got more in my, I could pick up on any sport. I can go wherever. But
it's funny, dude. A friend of mine that coaches Minot State, he knows you. It's like, oh, Shane? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've talked to him about a couple players before, but you went from having no contacts to thousands and thousands of contacts.
Well, yeah, and it just
and high D1 guys, you told me, you said you had high D1 guys that would
Mhm.
reach out to you and be like, "Hey, how's it going?
Yep. Yep.
Let
The
me
one-
buy you dinner."
and it's funny. So to that context, if that's what's so 85% of all college opportunities fall outside of Division One.
Right.
So that
right.
means a majority of the opportunities are going to be. So when you're going to one of these services, and this is just coming from somebody who did it better than anybody else in the world from an efficiency standpoint and a success standpoint, if all you're hearing is about these big name schools, first of all, no,
Right,
that's not
right,
true.
right.
That's kind of like Coach Calipari saying he's made these players into the NBA players
Right.
that they are. That's not true.
Does he say that though? In his defense, he doesn't
calls
discount.
it,
He doesn't not say it, and he doesn't say tell everybody, they were going to make it without me anyway. But
he definitely doesn't say that.
right, but I
And
mean,
I can assure you, he's
I
not
agree
saying
with
that.
I
He's not
agree
saying that on his recruiting visits.
right.
So
Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, just just go for the people who sound like they're going to work really, really hard for you. You don't always get what you pay for, and just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's better. Like it's
Right.
like there's a lot of, you just got to trust your gut. The best advice I can give you is find a service that you like,
Mhm.
that on your own, and then run it by your coach.
Right.
And have your coach call them, contact them, maybe have your coach do some research, contact some college coaches like, hey, are these people legit?
Right.
Do they have you? Because that's a lot of times what would happen where, I mean, Steve Alford would pick up the phone and call.
Right.
He'd call me. Like,
Right.
I've never once called him, right?
Right.
Like but not because he never asked me about a player. Never asked. It was always thankful of, man, I really appreciate what you're
Right.
doing. You know, you make our life so much easier. I wish all these guys out, like wanting, like, hey, do you we never charged college coaches. So I never I probably left, to put an actual real number on it, I probably left somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million of money, real money, on the table by not charging college coaches. But had we
Right.
done that, because of NCAA rules, we would only been allowed to sell or to distribute the information to just those coaches that were paying us. So we bypassed that money, which is a lot
Right.
of money,
Right.
and we did it to where we could I could literally send your information to any school. There's 3,000 universities in the country. I could send you anywhere in the world.
It's not just money though. You could get like football tickets on the day that a coach gets fired or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes. We won't go into that one. Yeah.
I think I was there that day and was like, I think I was going to meet that coach, and I was made in like the whole thing, and then happened.
Yeah. Let's just say that was a nightmare for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was completely, I was not in the wrong.
No, not at all.
I was okay, but for the people that I was there, and I'm still friends with the same person. We're still friends, and we're it's like that was a bad deal. And you know what? The crazy part is now the rules have changed, and it's not even.
Yeah, like IU got hammered over phone calls and text messages. So stupid. But anyway, so CCR, you decided to get out of that. You sold it, did it? Did you sell it?
No. We handed some things off to another company. It did just kind of an easy transition, and enough. I wanted to make sure that our current customers were taken care of, so we made sure they got to the next best service and those kind of things out there as well.
So what were you planning before COVID hit?
So COVID was going into, for me. I mean, I do some different business consulting and some marketing for different companies and different stuff out there. I've done some consulting for some other people who, somehow want to get into the college recruiting space in other countries and, some schools or national governments or something, but I mean, not what we were doing. I don't have any desire to get back into that world or in the day-to-day grind of not sleeping and, none of those things, but really just my story and my journey, and kind of now share my narrative out there, because I think it's, I realize that there is value in who I am and my story. And, I think when we all become successful, to some extent, what I have noticed that a lot of people who are successful develop what is called imposter syndrome. So you think like, oh man, I'm not, like, why would anybody want to talk to me? Why would anybody want to listen to me? And I mean, I've given 300 plus talks on 4 different continents at this stage. And, I enjoy
I've pulled that with you. And you're like, dude, you've got a story. Get out there and tell it.
Yeah. So that's my goal now, is to just travel around the world and share my story to schools and teachers and leadership teams. And I've got podcasts and stuff going. And, just really at this stage right now, man, I've experienced success, at an international level. It's basketball is what led to that. That is the cornerstone.
Well, that's what basketball is, like a lot of people think basketball, only NBA people or D1 basketball players get something from basketball. Basketball it's allowed me to get a teaching degree. It's allowed me to get a teaching job. I met my wife because of it. I've traveled internationally because of it. I've got to meet great people like you and Coach Foster because of it. So it's not just NBA guys making millions of dollars that basketball affects their lives.
Well, so it's funny you say that. So I think this is a really, really important thing to listen to if you're a parent, if you're an athlete, if you're a coach. Where do you think the 3,000 – let's do – I'm going to use 3,000. Where do you think the 2,500th best basketball player in America is doing right now?
Yeah.
Probably
not basketball.
Probably, no, he's probably got a good job working, right. Maybe for, a local company where he's at, those kind of things.
How do you get that?
Do you know what the 2,500th best entrepreneur is doing?
Talking to me right now?
No, some unbelievable stuff. Right. So so when you look at it, if you're the 500th employee that Google ever hired, you're a multi-millionaire. If you're the 500th best basketball player in the United States, you don't have a job somewhere.
Right.
So this whole narrative that kids get caught up too much in, I'll be honest, you should be using basketball way more than it uses you.
That's what Scotty Davenport talks about at Bellarmine all the time.
Yeah.
Use basketball. Don't let it use you.
When basketball starts taking more than it's giving, it's time you should part ways. And I'm going to be honest, I think that's for coaches too.
Right.
I think that's for coaches. When you're when you wake up and you're like, I really don't want to go to practice today.
Right.
At that moment, you should hang it up. You should, because you're doing a disservice to the coaches around you, the players around you. It's not the same.
No, I get it. I completely agree. To me, when it comes to things that get me through the day or the next month or whatever, there's certain, I love the word cornerstone. I love it in my faith. I love it in a lot of different things, but we all have them. There's these things that we hinge our lives on that whenever you've got all the mess and the depression of COVID or, stay in place or deadlines coming up, just remove the whole last 6-7 months. We're having an awareness of mental health in the last 7 and 8 months that has zoomed to the top of the charts because it's become so aware. And maybe it's because we don't have a whole lot of going on and we can actually pay attention to it. But this stuff's not new. This is not new. These are things that people have gone through. And I think that when you kind of clear all that away, there's stuff that you rely on. What are some things? Because, you come off like a tough guy. You come off like you got it. I'm good. I know. I'm not.
Yeah. No. You're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah. Whenever, maybe CCR started to end, or
sure, when,
last 6 months when something's really bothered you, what are some things? 2 things, two or three really big things that when you're like, okay, I need to calm down, and I need to make sure that I focus on this.
Yeah. So I guess to address the first part of the statement in question, I think a lot of it the reason there's more of an awareness of it is because people can't hide it. So you can't hide when you're having mental health issues when you're stuck at home.
Right.
In a house and you're not going anywhere because, you've been through this. And I don't know how much of your story and your journey.
Oh, I tell everybody.
Yeah. So you went through your stuff. There were times when you could hide it from your wife. because
Right.
you weren't around her all day.
Go to school.
Or you could hide it
With
from
my
your
friends, yeah.
your friends because now you were going home. Like
Right.
there was a way to move it. So when you're stuck at home, you have to I mean, people are seeing you literally lose your mind in front of them,
Right.
right? So, so I think that's a big part of it. What do I do? Yeah, I mean, mental health is one of those things I actually recommend to all my friends. Anytime I've got a friend that's getting close to 40, I tell them, look, by the time you're 40, you need to find a therapist and you need to schedule about 7 sessions, prepay for them,
Right.
and go. Because the first 2 sessions, you're not actually going to talk about anything. You're going to still think you got to hold everything to the chest.
Right.
Be this tough guy and not share anything. And then the next 2, you're going to cry for an hour and a half each time.
Right.
And then you're going to go through and you're going to kind of get through this. For me, I don't go to therapy to address anything in the present. When I shut down CCR, I got a therapist. I've been through a lot in my life without going to therapy. I've learned a lot of self-coping mechanisms.
Right.
So I went and I put somebody in place because I knew it's a huge life. You spend your life. I was sleeping every other day. I was out of the country 130 days a year. Like, I mean, it was a big deal. I'm a big deal in other countries.
Right.
To go and do this, I knew I was going through something that it was new. I had never been through it before. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get somebody just to have, be observant of me. Right. So in case they see something, because I know I can handle it. And it put me in the dumps. It put me in the dumps for about 8 weeks, maybe 6 weeks.
At the end of PCR?
Yeah. So after it was over, about 6-8 weeks. And then I was okay.
Right.
But it was really good to have someone there because in case it didn't go, and in case I did start to lose it, or I did start to not lose it, but lose control over my ability to rationally manage. And because most people have had some sort of anxiety in their life, whether as a child or as an adult. What you don't realize when you're not self-aware is you don't realize that, you're literally walking a line from you're not as sturdy. It's like the DUI test. It doesn't look like you think it looks. And so I did that, and I got therapy. I still go. I haven't been in probably 4 or 5 months. I check in every now and then. I've even interviewed, on my podcast. I've even interviewed my therapist. So, but I'm very open about it. So so that's what I was going to address. I actually appreciate you pointing these things out about me that are perceptions of me. Those things are true. I grew up in rough neighborhood. I've had a gun pulled on me 3 times in my life.
You've had some rough stuff happen to you.
I've been through it all, but I'm very forward about it. I'm very open about a lot of it.
That's why I bring that up, because you don't hold back. I'm not going to share some details you've told me, but there's some things that I've watched you on your podcast and you talked about it. So
sure. But I'm trying to normalize those things.
Right.
Because I think that people look at me and they think, oh, well, he's successful. They think I've always been successful. So that's why I tell you my senior year GPA was a 0.77, right? Like these things, because I want you to realize that what you think looks like having it together and what you think looks like success isn't actually, because we live in a hyperbole of positivity. Well, not now. I mean, we do, I guess, in some ways, but everybody just telling the best version of their own story. I don't know that I've told anything positive about myself in a long time, not in like a self-deprecating way of like, hey, this is just who I am.
Right.
So what you actually learn, I learned that at a very, very young age, that you just put it out there, and because oftentimes people don't share their most inner, deepest, darkest, painful things because they're doing it to protect someone else, because most of those things do not involve my family, my dad. I had a horrible childhood.
Yeah. And I've talked about this I teach psychology, and we just talk about stuff a lot of times, but and to be, I don't know your family situation. I don't know what you went through. I know what you've told me. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing that I can tell you is that as good a parent as you are, you're screwing your kid up somehow. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
course. Oh, absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
going to look back and remember things. Now, my dad grew up in a violent alcoholic home, so he got screwed up different than how he screwed me up, you know,
Correct.
and the positives far outweighed the negatives. But that's why I tell my students that, because I try to get their parent, you know, come on, give your parent a break. You think I got it together? Here, let me tell you as a parent.
Yeah. And
I know I'm messing my kids up, and I try not to, but you know, but anyway, go ahead.
I think there's a difference in doing it because like there's a difference in intentionally doing it, right? So intentional trauma is different than secondary trauma, because I screwed up and I've had a bad day and I just chewed you out for not taking out the trash when your mom told you don't worry about it, and now I got to go back and apologize to you and say, my bad, I didn't know mom told, you know, I didn't know, you know. And you should do that. You should apologize to your kids when you're wrong. You should do that.
I've done that a lot. Too much.
Yes. So you know, so I think that's a big part, like getting it out. Like, so I don't have to, I'm not, who am I to, it's not my job to protect anybody else. It's not my job to, like that's not my burden to carry. That's their issue. And if it affects them, that's their issue to carry. And I realize that's maybe one of the hardest things to do as a human being, is to openly talk about your trauma, which I think for a lot of people, it catches a lot of people off guard, hearing Shane talk about it so freely. So I do that. So I communicate openly about it. I've done a lot of research. I have ADHD as well. So I've done a lot of research on why my brain works the way that it does. You know, I don't look at something like ADHD as like as a diagnosis. It's actually a superpower if you can actually figure it out, because my brain works a lot faster than most people's. But I've done meditation. I used to do it a lot when I travel, because I would just try to center myself, and mentally I always made the shift, because it's a long time. I'm being out of the country 3 weeks at a time. There was a stretch where in a 12-month period, I was out of the country 214 days. And that's a lot of days out of the country. And we're talking about Europe, China, Australia, New Zealand, back to Australia, back to New Zealand. Like, it was like a crazy time for me. And so what I always did was, and I've got kids, I got 5 kids, and what I always did was I said, once I land wherever I'm going, and if I'm going to be there for longer than a week, I make a mental shift that this is where I live. I navigate that. I learned to navigate without GPS. I know the locals. I can tell you places to go, and you tell them you know me in Australia when you go to eat, and they're going to take care of you. That's
how I have to do that too. It's almost compartmentalizing, because if you don't cut that thread, then it hurts. It aches so bad. And it's, you know, it's not that I don't want to talk to my wife and kids when I'm out of the country or gone for a while, but it makes it worse. Like, if you can cut that cord, everything's good. And then that night, you know, you call or you FaceTime or whatever, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it used to be that way for me. I've missed some things. I missed my daughter rolling over. There's certain things. I missed my daughter rolling over when I was in England. Like, there's certain things that I've missed, but I also look at it and say, I could beat myself up over that. But the guys in the military do that all the time, right? So for me, I look at it and say, the things that I've gained out of this and what my kids as a secondary have gained out of this far outweigh. You know, And like, you don't remember how many times you went. You don't know the number of times that you went and hung out with your dad doing something. What you remember are the memorable moments and memories you had. So oftentimes, parents and dads, especially who travel and work, they're worried and concerned about, I'm not home enough. Well, I don't think it's as much about being enough. It's as much about the quality that you're putting in when you're there.
So with your ADHD, getting back to cornerstones of your life, you know, sharing your story, and not only sharing it publicly, but in therapy. So, you know, some things that, like, you, and I agree with you, you still a negative stigma to going to see a counselor or something. And it just amazes me how, even before I went to a counselor, how dumb it was. Cause it was like, how do you do it? Because it's good to go to a third person that has nothing. You know, they don't know you, and they're just listening to you and talk to you. But then when I went, and how, you know, it was just so good that it is amazing to me. Well, it's you get these old school people who think everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's a whiny little man. They ain't gonna
Yeah.
go see a counselor. And it's like, okay, I may agree with some of what you're saying,
Yeah.
but true manhood, true toughness is admitting that you're weak and that you need help.
Yeah. Yeah. There's way more real men that go to therapy than don't.
That absolutely.
Yeah. So you're right. And I always get well, I mean, I know, again, I'm a big guy. I am who I am. So I've never had anybody publicly to my face say, oh man, you go to therapy, like make it like in a derogatory thing. But I've heard it come up if I've entered a conversation like, man, I don't need to do all that. Also, you're too tough. You're too tough to go. Like you don't need, you got it all under control. You don't ever, cause see, that's me. Like if we want to have a real conversation, I'm like, oh, so when you and your wife have conversations, does it go like this?
Right.
This is how it goes. Oh, you tell her everything, right? So like even I don't want to come home and talk to my wife about stuff because I don't want to stress her out. There's a version of that we all do,
right?
But like, and you're talking about being in travel. Like with my wife, she's great. Like we have a great, we make a great team, right? Like where there's a void, we make a shift into make a change in how we operate and do things, and we fill it, right? So when I would travel, we never like went out of our way. Like it was never like, hey, when are you calling? When are you calling? When are you calling? It was natural. If I got free, especially in Australia, man, 16-hour difference, 18-hour difference. Well, Lord have mercy. There's no telling where I'd be. So you just have a conversation. If we caught each other, I never missed a call and was like, oh no, I'm gonna get chewed out now when
That's what I tell people. Like I have a coach, like coaches' wives are different. Okay. But I have one that is like, hey honey, I have an opportunity to go to Colombia here in a couple of weeks. Go. And
so when I was starting the business,
go, please. And I'm like, I do a lot of therapy in front of my classroom with my kids. And I talk these things out, and I'm like, I have such a wonderful wife. I go, hey, I'm going to Africa. Go, it's great. I'm going to go to South America. Good, go. And I'm like, she's so awesome. And then I thought, wait a second. She doesn't ever stop me from going. Maybe it's not where she's understanding. Maybe
she's trying to get rid of me.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So that's when I started CCR. That's how it was. I was having these conversations. Her and I were just sitting on the couch, young, early in our relationship, and engaged and throwing ideas out. And it was like, hey, I think this is what I wanted. And she was like, just go do it. She's like, I've never met anybody like you who can just say you're going to do something and somehow you figure it out. She goes, I don't even know how it happens. She's like,
I listen to married people talk, usually basketball coaches, and they talk about how their wives don't enjoy that they coach. And I'm just like, okay, one, I don't get that because my wife is so supportive. And two, I call it a wedge issue. It starts off little, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the next thing you know, it ain't good. So whenever I hear that, I'm always just like,
well, I think it's communication.
Sure.
And so you were asking me, what do I do when, now what do I do from a mental health standpoint? I think it's, I think therapy obviously is something that, again, and it's funny. And I think you can relate to this. I was about 5 or 6 sessions in, and in my mind, I had never been to therapy before. So I didn't know how it was. I've only you watch it on TV. Like I'm going to go lay on a couch and somebody's going to, it doesn't go that way at all.
I walked in, I was like, so do I lay on the couch? And she was like, if you want to.
Yeah. So I go through, and after maybe the 5th or 6th session, I walk in and we did our normal catch up. I was like, I got to ask something because this is eating at me. And she's like, go ahead. I was like, do you think this is working? And she looked at me and she goes, I don't know. Do you think it's working? And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, no, it's not what I asked you. And she's like, okay, well, tell me. She's like, what do you want? What do you want me to answer? I was like, do you think I'm getting anything out of this? And she goes, I think you are. And I was like, well, I'm glad you think you are because I don't think I am. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, because I'm the only one doing the talking. like most of my sessions were almost 2 hours long. And I'm like, I'm like 2 months in at 5 or 6 sessions, like 10 hours into talking to this lady.
Right.
And she was like, do you think I need to talk more? I was like, I don't know. Have I said anything? She's like, do you come up with the answers? And I was like, well, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, this is going how it's supposed to go. If you need guidance, I'll guide you.
So a lot of people think you go to a counselor or therapy so they will give you the answers, and it's not that way. What they do is they let you talk and work your way around to the answer that you already knew anyway. So you should have just saved your gosh dang money and been honest with yourself in the first place.
But that's for people who don't you don't know how to.
Right.
So it goes back to communication.
Right. And I'm being facetious there.
Yeah.
But a good counselor doesn't tell you the answer. They work you around till you find the answer yourself.
Yes. If I ever walk into a different therapist and they sit down and they start telling me a whole bunch of things,
right,
and I've not been going to them for years, no, I'm probably just going to be like, hey, you know what? I appreciate it. Go ahead and chalk this one up to the old slush fund. I won't be back. Like this is not going to be it. So I do that. Meditation works great. We do. My daughter has dealt with some stress stuff. We've done meditation with her. She goes and does it whenever she knows it's kind of a tool in her belt, if you will, of things. And then, man, have a friend. Have a friend you can talk to. You know, you and I have talked a lot about this because you and I are we're very aware of the world, and not many people have traveled to the countries that we've traveled. So not everybody really understands those things. And we're also not we don't live in a world where we believe the world revolves around just America and America's views and America's so we have we can have a different level of conversation. So I think that's definitely helped. But you and I have leaned. I can remember when the whole shutdown started. We're going back and forth, and is this going to happen? And then it goes through, and then it was like, hey, you hit me hey, how you holding up? How you? I'm I'm good. And then a couple of days hey, you good? And you're like, man, this is I don't know, man. This is and we went back and forth. Yeah. And I know there was one point my wife was like, you're talking to him more than you're talking to me. This is what
my son does that. My wife and son are like, who's texting you? Shane. Oh, Shane again. Yeah. But I remember sending you a text, and at the time we're shut in place, and we're shut in place. In the next month, it was something crazy. 1 million people are going to die. And I was like,
it was, we were shut in place and everything was going to open back up. And we were like, okay, it's opening back up. Our people, we didn't think people were going to still wear masks, and we didn't think people were still going to social distance at all.
I thought it was more at the beginning, and it was because it was here. And maybe it was before the shut in place, but they were talking about how many people months, and it was some number that was if they said, hey man, 1,000 people are going to die over the next 2 months, that one is too many, but it was millions. And I can remember texting you dude, this is the Walking Dead end of civilization that we know.
Well, I think happens. I'm pretty sure at some point we started to formulate a plan that our families were going to link up somewhere in the woods,
North Dakota, maybe.
Yeah, we were going somewhere. We were going somewhere in the woods, and we were just going to live off the land. And between all of us, we could figure out.
Well, we had teachers. I had a doctor I was going to bring with me, I think. Well, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law is a doctor.
Yeah.
We'd have been fine.
Oh, my brother-in-law, I can assure you we'd have been all right.
Yeah. After about a week of no Big Macs, I'd have been like, what are we eating? Berries and squirrel again? What are you talking?
Absolutely.
I don't have matches. How do I start this fire?
But I think that's the key is find somebody that you can – and why did you and I trust each other? I don't know. I think it was just time, and we had a friendship,
right? And pretty honest with each other.
Yeah. Well, whenever you you'd be in town for a sporting event, you'd hit me. I'd make an effort to go over there and just pop in, if nothing else, just to say hi and just be present. I was in Indiana and had some friends in Australia that got in a jam and they needed some help, and you popped in and you helped them, and then I came up, and so I mean, I think it's just you know, time and opportunity, and then you got to have somebody that you can trust, and
Right.
just like you
No,
figure out.
I don't tell anybody what you say except my wife. I'm like, do you know what he effing said today?
Well, same. Yeah. I mean, I probably, I don't know. I mean, we,
You and I,
if people actually read our text messages,
oh my gosh,
they'd be
I think
terrified.
we didn't like each other.
Yeah. They would be terrified.
The thing that I've told you before is that we drink from the same water differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And I saw a picture one time, and I use this in class all the time about perspective. You know, if you're on the other side of me and there's a puddle of water, and my image is in that water, I see it a certain way, you see it a different way. We're both right, but we're telling each other you're wrong because the way I see it. And like I said, I think our international travels have helped. The best education, the best education is travel.
Oh, because you and I can literally there are certain things that people can try to rationalize who've never traveled out of the country, that you and I would sit and listen to them and be like, this idiot has no idea what they're talking about. Like what, like they think like we joke about how people who've never really traveled or understand internet, like they think the world revolves around America or American Christianity or these other things. So
yeah, we've had that conversation, but like I really, and I guess it's some of my arrogance in my traveling, but sometimes Americans, not just my students, not just my 17, 18-year-old students, but some of my 50-year-old friends, 40-year-old friends, the way they talk sounds like my kids when they don't get their, hey, we're going to go out to eat and spend more money than a person makes in Africa in 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're going to this place, and they want to throw a fit. That's what I hear from adults.
I didn't get or he hit me first, or
when I hear adults complain about things that are so irrelevant.
Well, you and I, but I mean, there was a time where, we had nothing else to do. I mean, thankfully we like the same shows, so we're bouncing Netflix shows off of each other. Peaky Blinders. If you're not, we're waiting. Hopefully, if we go back into another stay in place, that they'll drop the season early or something, so we can enjoy it. But I mean, it's just that having that, be able to do that. And I think that comes back to basketball as well, of having that camaraderie and being able to, you're not going to go out and you're not going to give your best every night, right? You're going to have an off night, right? Even the best in the world have an off night.
Yeah, even in the coaching circles, there's some coaches that don't like each other from a competitive standpoint, but I've always found it interesting, and I don't know how college coaches are, but a lot of time high school coaches, we're all dealing with the same issues. And even if I beat you right now, I may cost you your job because you lost the game. You don't hold that against me. And there's a bonding, I've been an assistant now for 8 years, and there's part of me, and even though I've been a head coach, so I got a respect level from certain head coaches and officials, but I'm still just the assistant, and I do kind of miss that camaraderie that comes with being a head coach, but not enough to step into those waters again, unless, it's an emergency or something. But because you talk about anxiety, it was eating me up. And, but anyway, there's coaches, there's high school coaches I can call right now and have the same conversation I'm having with you. And it's because it's a shared experience differently, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Cause our morals and values are like they're aligned. They those things are good, but it's just how, again, we've walked two different paths to get to where we're at right now, and that's I wouldn't want you to go back and have to experience the things I went through. I wouldn't want to be sitting in a gymnasium and have to deal with what you had to deal through, like that. I mean, what's wild, and this is, I guess I actually totally skipped over this, is the same storm that hit your gym and could have killed you, almost killed me. And that's wild. So I was sitting, so for those of you, and I'm sure at some point you'll hear Perry's story, I'm sure he'll talk about it. But when the storm that I'm referencing that hit him, so where I was working from home. I was working from home. I was building CCR, and we were texting that day. So I saw the tornado warning, and I messaged. It was like, hey, are you good? And you're like, yeah, we just had, you were leading up to the kids leading out.
Right.
Well, the same storm was blowing debris where I'm at the house we were renting, and there was gas heat, and unbeknownst to me, a limb hit the exhaust that comes up out of the
crazy
roof.
thing. That's a crazy story.
So it goes out, and I started having these headaches, and I didn't know why. I just thought I was stressed. And the guy that came and do our maintenance, I don't know, like a couple months later, they have routine maintenance set up at this house, and he comes in, and he comes in the room, and he was like, "Sir, did you say you work from home?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like looking at me like he's seen a ghost.
Yeah, how are you still alive?
That's what he said. He said, "Sir, I don't know how to say this, but I don't know how you're still alive."
Right.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Have you had any kind of headaches?" And I was like, "Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I have." I was like, "I've had a lot of headaches." And he was like, "Well, let's go outside for a minute." So we go outside, and he's like talking to me. He's like taking some deep breaths. And I was like, "What is this guy doing?" Right. He goes back inside, and he shows me. He's like, "You see this big PVC pipe coming out of your furnace?" He's like, "It's supposed to be attached right here. It's not supposed to be dislodged in your." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, the carbon monoxide that's coming out is just coming into your house." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "That explains the headaches." I had carbon monoxide poisoning and didn't even know it.
Right.
And so, yeah, so the same storm on the same day. Yeah, boy, that was rough. Oh, man, I had crazy headaches. And I don't take Tylenol, so I just kind of fight through it. Oh, man, that was rough. I just thought it was like staring at a screen all day long.
Carbon monoxide poisoning. I don't need any Tylenol for that.
I didn't know that's what I had.
I know.
Listen, I bet I went and walked more in the next 5 days after that just to try and get oxygen in my lungs. Like that was going to do something.
But here's the thing, man. And the older I get, the more I'm around people. But I've had friends, I've had acquaintances that are fine, and then they die. They have a heart attack, or they have a stroke, or this, that, or whatever they didn't know about. And it's like, after that tornado hit, I always tell people for about a day or two, I was invincible. You have an EF4 tornado go over top of you, and you walk out of the building that's completely destroyed, and you're like, no, nothing can get me. And then, I realized I was in shock. And when that all settled, then I saw death in every step. And I just kept waiting. At what point am I going to have a heart attack? What if my tire blows out at this moment and I've got Brandon in the back seat, and not only will, he's dying and I can't get to him to get out, like just horrible, horrible things entered my mind. And, they still do sometimes, but what am I going to do?
Yeah,
Sit around here and worry about it I tell people all the time, like I have anxiety really bad and panic attacks, but I don't worry about COVID. I worry about like, am I going to take another breath?
Yeah.
I don't worry about our financial situation. I worry about, is Maddie, my daughter, okay? Is she doing okay? And I think the thing that scares me is that we know that my grandma on my mom's side dealt with this stuff. My mom has dealt with this. I've got it. And now, I can already see it some in Brandon. He worries about a lot of things. The good news is I'm about 38 years older than him. So by the time it really hits him, I may be dead. So,
Well, that too, and we're also in a new generation where we talk about it, right? So now you're able to, help him with some things that would have been nice if you would have known at 15 and 16 and those things.
Well, I can remember my first panic attack was in 8th grade, but I had great parents. You talk about some of your stuff, but I had my dad. We had more than one awkward conversation about things that at 14, 15, and 16, you're like, Dad, stop. And I look back on it, and I always had a parent at an athletic event. I always had a parent. They were present. They didn't know, my dad wasn't an athlete. So when we'd lose a big game and I couldn't handle it, or we'd win a game, but play badly, and I'd be upset.
Yeah.
He never could understand that. He couldn't, but so you're right. It will help that the mental health and all that is going to be better as they age. So,
Well, that I think that's the one positive, and I
Right.
think, like I said, I think we're going to get to a place where, I mean, do we really need 4 years of PE? Why not one
Right.
of those years of yoga, or
John
one of those?
Kennedy said we needed it back in the 60s.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I
It's like
believe.
it's like daylight time savings time. Like, why
Yeah,
in the world do we still do
yeah.
that? Do you guys do that down there?
Yes.
This
You guys
weekend
don't
we
though.
will fall back, so it'll get dark about 5:45, 6 p.m. Sun
Yeah,
comes.
but I thought Indiana didn't.
No, we certain parts don't. We do. Where I live,
See, I
we
knew
do.
y'all were messed up. How does half the
Southwest part of
state
the state,
decide? Like, how did they decide that?
dude. I have no idea.
Did
This
y'all
all
sit
started
around?
because
Did y'all
of
just
farming.
sit around playing cornhole one day and decide, hey, well,
No, it's farming. It has to go back to Indiana was a
I,
farm state, and we evolved
I'll
past
agree with that.
unlike
Indiana's that's what y'all
Kentucky.
are known for, is farming. I'll
Yeah,
agree with
kind of
that.
like Kentucky's tobacco.
Oh, maybe 30 years ago. There's more. There's more hemp now that grows here than tobacco does.
Yeah. Well, I know we're looking at about 2 hours going here. I know, and this is the thing that if I knew how to edit all this, I'd make this into like 2 or 3 different shows.
No, well, you'd be able. No, I mean, you can always cut it up and
Right.
do that, but some of the podcasts, like Joe Rogan's podcasts, go for 3 and 4 hours, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not Joe Rogan, but maybe
Well,
someday they'll come back, and when you are major, big time podcast superstar, I'll be like, remember me? Hey, the Shane Howard.
see, this is see. So I'm gonna tell everybody the truth. This is what I have to deal with in my text messaging. When I wake up in the morning, I wake up to these things like this and these kind of statements. The other thing is I had to beg him to come on here. I literally have been hitting like, hey,
you had to beg him.
you know what he kept saying? No, I got other people, man. He's like, look, I got
You're
you in line.
I have to get these people out of the way.
Finally today, I said, hey, I was like, man, when can I get on? Can I please get on the show? I'll cancel things if I need to cancel things. And you were like, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And I was like, look, I said, look, I just need 15 minutes to get my hair ready.
Yeah.
And then I'm good.
Yeah.
And he texted me. He's like, okay, are you ready? I just put a peach cobbler in the oven.
Yeah.
He's like, are you ready? I was like, hey, yeah, I'll drop everything.
Now or never.
Fire
Now or never.
smoke alarms have been going off in my house because it's just
Now or
burning.
never, son.
Hey, I was not going to miss the opportunity. But
No, but
I would like to think that I am interesting enough for people to listen to for 2 hours. I have been told that my voice is one of audio supremacy.
I always think of it's like a mixture of Jesus and Fergie.
Well, I mean,
Do you know that movie reference?
no, I don't.
Step Brothers?
Oh man, I'm not.
You never watched that?
I mean, I've watched it, but I'm not like you. I can't watch something more than once.
Well, Will Ferrell singing, and he's like, "You're really good," and he's like, "It reminds me of a mixture of Fergie and Jesus." It's a funny line.
That sounds really good to me. That sounds like the voice of an angel. It sounds like hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. But yeah, no, I think what you're doing is great. I mean, I would anybody you can interview. I mean, Lord, if you're willing to have me on here, I mean, you didn't set the bar very high, so anybody after me is going to be worth getting on. So
I interviewed myself as an introduction, then my daughter, my son, then my daughter.
Interview
number
yourself.
4.
Oh, no,
Man,
actually,
I don't really call it an interview. I just
wait a
what I
second.
wanted to do.
I think we actually need to see an interview with yourself. I would that I would actually pay for.
Hey. I told my class the other day, I play the devil's advocate so much for the last 22 years in the classroom. Sometimes I don't even know what I believe.
That's literally all you and I do. One of us throws an opinion out. Even if I agree with your opinion, I literally will throw a different article or a different opinion at you.
And I always send a little smart aleck remark back to you. You sent me something about Trump, and I was like, yes, this time they're going to get it.
Yeah, and I was like, well, yeah, but we don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. Like, so we don't know. We don't know. So,
but no, but I appreciate you coming on here and talking,
dude,
spending some
anytime.
time.
Anytime. And if I can help connect you with anybody or
absolutely. I'll take some of that free
So
stuff.
anybody who listens, make sure you do him a favor and like it. Drop a comment down below. Tune in. Let him know your thoughts. Definitely go and check out the episode. I'm trying to see the date that it was on when your son was on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We did that down here in the basement. The lighting wasn't real good. He goes, Dad, can we do that again? The lighting wasn't real good.
Yeah,
did you watch the one with my daughter? A little bit.
I caught a little bit of it, man. Yeah, see, I got to figure out how to. Man, Brandon's episode has 783 views. If nothing else, I'm gonna have to spend some money just so he can't sit and brag and say that his has more views than mine.
Well, maybe you should interview him.
I should. Is he still listening?
Nah, he's in bed. No, here's the deal. Cute kids, man. Just interview cute kids. Everybody loves cute kids.
Man, it surely was not the Toledo shirt you were wearing in that interview.
Dude, that's one of our dudes is going there. Cooper Jacoby. He's committed. The other dudes.
783 views.
Is that a lot?
Wow, yeah, it's a lot.
Is it really? I don't know.
I'm not stroking you here. Yeah, it's I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's a lot.
Good. It was good because I swear I got more out of both of them by doing this and asking follow-up questions than I would just in the car talking or something.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It's fun. And it's something that'll be out there for
absolutely
their grandkids someday.
And
that's what I said. Worst case scenario, that's what this is.
And that's the beauty of this is your great grandkids are watching this right now.
Right.
They're getting a view of how you were with your friends and how life was and how you talked.
That's the basketball coach. That's the guy that lived through the tornado that has been the story that's been passed down generation.
That was the old man who was crazy, who lived in the house over on the hill that nobody would go see. And you just walk up and you just lay the food down at the front door and he growl at you. That's him.
What, are you talking about you?
No. I'm cooking. I don't need somebody to cook for me.
I'm going to go up. I don't know what I'm going to eat. Something. My fat belly is hungry.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you being here. And for anybody, like he said, again, anybody who watches, I feel like I don't know why you would want to, but feel free to comment like he said. And if there's anything we can do to help you out, let us know. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, buddy.
And we're out. Now, see, you know what I'm doing, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
In the broadcast. See, I did not